He pulled a drowning animal from the swamp, then froze when he saw it was a tiger. The Bengali sun beats down mercilessly on the Sundarbans, the largest mangrove forest in the world. Ancient trees twist their roots into murky waters that flow like liquid shadows between endless islands of green. This is a place where land and water dance together in an eternal embrace, where the boundaries between earth and sea blur into something wild and untamed. Somewhere in this vast labyrinth of waterways, where civilization feels like a distant dream, a story unfolds that will challenge everything you think you know about fear, courage, and the thin line between predator and prey. Rajesh guides his small wooden boat through the narrow channels with the skill of someone born to these waters. At 35, he spent his entire life in the Sundarbans, fishing these treacherous waters to feed his family. His hands are calloused from years of handling nets and ropes, his skin weathered by sun and salt spray. His dark eyes know how to read the subtle signs of tide and current the way light changes when a storm approaches, the difference between the ripple of a fish and the wake of something far more dangerous. The Sundarbans are home to the most fearsome predators on Earth. Royal Bengal tigers, perfectly adapted to this watery wilderness, swim between islands with the grace of dolphins and the power of nightmares. Rajesh has lived his entire life knowing that every fishing trip could be his last, that beneath the murky surface or behind the next mangrove tree, death might be waiting with amber eyes and razor claws. But today feels different. The morning started like any other, with Rajesh checking his nets and following the ancient routes his father taught him. The fish have been scarce lately, forcing him to venture deeper into the swamp than usual, into channels where few fishermen dare to go. His wife Priya had begged him not to go so far from home, but with 3 children to feed and monsoon season approaching, he had no choice. It's mid-afternoon when Rajesh hears it. A sound that doesn't belong in the natural symphony of the swamp. Not the call of a bird or the splash of a crocodile. Something else. Something desperate. He stops rowing and listens, his heart beginning to race. There it is again. A splashing, frantic and weak, came from somewhere beyond the thick wall of mangroves to his left. Rajesh debates turning back. Every instinct tells him to flee. In the Sundarbans, strange sounds usually mean danger, but the splashing continues, growing weaker, more desperate. Something is drowning. And despite every warning his father ever gave him, despite every story of fishermen who ventured too far and never returned, Rajesh finds himself steering toward the sound. He pushes through a curtain of hanging vines and enters a small lagoon hidden deep in the heart of the swamp. The water here is deeper, darker, stained the color of tea by the tannins from countless fallen leaves. And there, in the center of the lagoon, something is struggling. All Rajesh can see is a flash of orange and black, thrashing weakly in the dark water, going under, surfacing, going under again. His first thought is that it's a large snake, maybe a python that bit off more than it could chew. Or perhaps a wild boar that fell from one of the elevated paths animals use to cross between islands. Whatever it is, it's dying. And for reasons he can't explain, Rajesh finds himself unable to turn away. He paddles closer, his hands trembling on the oars. The animal's struggles are getting weaker. Soon it will slip beneath the surface for the last time. Rajesh reaches for the long bamboo pole he uses to push through shallow water. Maybe he can help it reach the shore, give it a chance to save itself. The pole touches the drowning creature, and immediately Rajesh feels the weight of it, the solid mass of muscle and bone. This is no snake. This is something big, something powerful. He hooks the pole around what feels like a limb and begins to pull, using all his strength to drag the animal toward his boat. The water breaks, and for one heart-stopping moment, Rajesh sees a massive paw, black-striped and golden orange, with claws longer than his fingers. His blood turns to ice. His breath catches in his throat. Every muscle in his body screams at him to let go, to flee, to save himself while he still can. He's pulling a tiger from the swamp. A Royal Bengal tiger, the apex predator of the Sundarbans, is the nightmare that has haunted the dreams of fishermen for generations. And it's alive, but it's also drowning. And despite every survival instinct shrieking at him to abandon this madness, Rajesh continues to pull. The tiger's head breaks the surface, its massive jaws gasping for air, its yellow eyes glazed with exhaustion and something that looks almost like gratitude. It's a young male, probably 2 years old, powerful, but not yet fully grown. How it ended up drowning in this remote lagoon, Rajesh can't imagine. The tiger is too heavy to pull into the boat. And even if Rajesh could manage it, sharing such a small space with a predator would be suicide. Instead, he guides his boat to the edge of the lagoon, where a muddy bank slopes gently into the water. Using the pole and every ounce of strength he possesses, he helps the exhausted tiger reach the shallow water where it can touch bottom. The great cat stumbles onto the bank water, streaming from its magnificent coat. It collapses immediately, its massive body heaving with exhaustion. For several minutes, it doesn't move except to breathe, its eyes closed, its energy completely spent. Rajesh sits in his boat just a few feet away, hardly daring to breathe himself, waiting to see what will happen next. You won't believe what happened next. Slowly, the tiger lifts its massive head. Its amber eyes, now clear and focused, look directly at Rajesh. For a moment that seems to last forever, predator and prey simply stare at each other. There's no anger in those eyes, no hunger, no threat. Just something that looks remarkably like recognition, like understanding. The tiger struggles to its feet, still weak, but determined. It stands at the water's edge for a moment, looking at Rajesh with that same inexplicable expression. Then incredibly, it lowers its great head in what can only be described as a bow. A gesture of acknowledgement, of respect, of gratitude from one of nature's most magnificent predators to the human who saved its life. Then the tiger turns and melts into the jungle, disappearing as silently as a shadow. Rajesh sits alone in his boat, wondering if what just happened was real, or if the heat and isolation have finally driven him mad. But the muddy paw prints on the bank tell the story. The disturbed vegetation where the great cat dragged itself to safety. The lingering scent of wild musk in the air. Rajesh rose home in a daze, his mind struggling to process what he's experienced. He knows no one will believe him. Who would believe that a simple fisherman pulled a drowning tiger from a swamp and lived to tell about it? Who would believe that such a predator would show gratitude rather than aggression? When he reaches his village, Rajesh says nothing about what happened. He simply ties up his boat, helps his wife prepare dinner, and plays with his children as though this were a day like any other. But that night, lying in his small bed, listening to the sounds of the swamp, he replays every moment in his mind. The weight of the tiger on his pole, the intelligence in those amber eyes, the impossible moment when death bowed to life, when the natural order seemed to pause long enough for compassion to flow between species. Days pass. Weeks. Rajesh continues his work, fishing the channels he knows, staying closer to home as his wife requested. But sometimes when the light is just right and the water is still, he ventures back toward that hidden lagoon. Not looking for trouble, just wondering. One evening, as the sun sets in a blaze of gold and crimson, Rajesh is heading home with his day's catch when he sees something that makes his heart skip. On a distant mud bank silhouetted against the dying light stands a tiger. The same tiger, he's certain of it. The young male has grown in the weeks since their encounter, his coat lustrous and healthy, his bearing proud and strong. The tiger watches Rajesh's boat pass, making no move to hide or flee. For a moment, their eyes meet across the water, and Rajesh swears he sees recognition there, remembrance of the day when the natural order bent just enough to allow mercy to exist between predator and prey. Then the tiger turns and vanishes into the mangroves, leaving Rajesh with the certainty that some encounters change us forever, that compassion is a force powerful enough to bridge any gap, even the one between a simple fisherman and the king of the jungle. Word of Rajesh's story eventually spreads, as stories do in small villages. Wildlife researchers arrive intrigued by tales of unusual tiger behavior. They set up cameras in the area hoping to document the interactions between the local tiger population and the fishing communities. What they find surprises them. The young male tiger that Rajesh saved has indeed thrived. Camera footage shows him to be healthy, well-fed, and remarkably tolerant of human presence. Unlike other tigers in the region, he doesn't seem to view fishermen as threats or potential prey. He's been observed watching boats from a distance, never approaching, never threatening, but showing a curiosity that borders on recognition. The researchers can't explain it scientifically. There's no precedent for such behavior, no research that suggests tigers can feel or express gratitude. But the evidence is undeniable. Something happened in that hidden lagoon that created a bond between man and beast, a connection that defies our understanding of the natural world. Rajesh still fishes, the Sundarbans still ventures into channels where tigers hunt and fishermen fear to go. But he's never been attacked, never been threatened. Sometimes on quiet mornings when the mist rises from the water like ghosts, he catches glimpses of orange and black moving through the mangroves. Watching, protecting, remembering. And that's the incredible story of Rajesh and the tiger, a tale that reminds us that courage comes in many forms, and that sometimes the most dangerous situations become the most profound connections. In a world where humans and wildlife often exist in conflict, Rajesh's choice to save rather than flee shows us that compassion can exist even in the face of our deepest fears. The bond between man and tiger may seem impossible, but sometimes the impossible becomes reality when we choose love over fear, action over paralysis. If this story moved, you share it with someone who needs to believe in the power of courage and compassion. Subscribe for more incredible true stories that show us the extraordinary connections possible between humans and the wild. Until next time, remember that every act of mercy creates ripples that can change the world, one life at a time.